And now we're gonna move on to G, discussion by council. Discussion by council, vote on the action on update by Municipal Building Review Task Force. Mr. Bennett. I'm sorry? No, please, go ahead, presentation.
We have two invoices that we're recommending payment on. One is the Emery Environmental Associates in the amount of $780. And the reason that you will see no record of approval from the council or any other board was there was a miscommunication between myself and Saccoccio Associates. I asked them to get a proposal on testing at the annex, so we would have a baseline of which to start from. They went ahead and had testing done. It's not like we didn't have it done, so if there's anyone who's responsible, I'll take full responsibility for it.
Would have had to been done anyway, right?
Correct.
Same thing with KP,
Correct. But that's why there's no record that you didn't approve going out for it, we didn't approve going out for it. We were looking for a quote from Emery to have baseline testing done in that building. We have baseline testing done in that building. Town is in possession of that report, and the bill is $780. We recommend payment on that.
So, okay, first off, that's a motion for the approval of the abatement of $780. So I'll make a motion to approve the $780 to Saccoccio and Associates for the background air testing report. That's a motion. Second. Roll call.
It's to Emery Environmental, right?
Sure, I got it.
Emery Environmental Associates.
Bill to Saccoccio, but it's for Emery.
Correct.
At the bottom of the page, it says payable to. Bottom of the bill.
Yeah, the bill says it's bill.
Go to the bottom of the bill.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the motion then is to, for the $780 payable to Emery Environmental Associates for the $780 for the background air testing report. That's a motion. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bottomoli? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Swansky?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad?
Yes. And the other invoice?
Is for Saccoccio and Associates in the amount of $6,618, and that is for bridging services through the day of July 1st, 2018.
Okay. So I'll make the motion to approve $6,618 to Saccoccio and Associates for Smithfield Bridging Services, project number 18017.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bottomoli? Yes. Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Swansky?
Yes.
Mr. Biragad?
Yes. All right. Don't hate me for this, okay? But every meeting, not every meeting, but very often, we have Mr. Clifford coming in here, and he's going on and on about how wrong this whole project is. So let's get it over with, all right? What do you got? Paul's here, he can answer every question that you possibly have.
It's simple, John. The voters passed a referendum
Right.
for the reconstruction of Kendall Bean to make it into a complex to hold the school department and municipal offices. As I looked at that map at the, I'm sorry, the floor plan at the last meeting, there's one area. Do you have the floor plan in front of you?
I don't have it.
I see only one area in the entire Kendall Dean floor plan that has, I think it says school department, school payroll / bookkeeping.
Okay.
That's one person, as I know, in the school department now that does the payroll, and then they do the other week bookkeeping. So how many people are moving over there from the school department? It was supposed to be in the original two designs.
There's 5 people moving over there from the
Based
school.
on my experience, I've been going for 8 years, but 5 people in that department.
No, there are 5 people moving, or there are 5 people in the department?
5 people are moving into that building. It's
Okay,
fine.
but-
That's it. That's it.
That's correct.
Where's the rest of them?
Yeah,
That's what I want to know, because I
You
heard.
want to know what the answer is, Claire?
Yep.
It's plain and simple, and everyone seems to keep wanting to ignore the fact that the town was told we're gonna do X, not to exceed $5.2 million. And when the bids came in, they were $2 million over. $2 million over.
That's
So
not the
we're-
reason, Mr.
no,
Bagney.
that isn't.
That's not the reason. We have a superintendent that doesn't want to be in the building.
You're wrong. You
Well,
have a
he expressed
plan.
that every
Listen,
single time, Mr. Bagney. Did you hear that, Mr. Clifford?
No, I'm sorry, Paul, but at the last
Oh, wait a minute,
meeting,
we're gonna do.
at the last, can you
Hold on,
explain?
let her address, so, let
Did
him
you
address what,
hear
let him
that?
address
I
the
heard
question.
that multiple times. He said straightforward, he has the right to say it. In my old school, administration was in the buildings with the children.
Claire,
Well, guess what? He's not in his old school. We have competent principals, assistant principals, etc. Let them do their
Mr.
work.
Batnick, you want
Claire.
And I mean that,
Claire,
it's
Let him
not
go,
the
let him
money.
go.
Claire,
Let him go.
what piece of this are we missing here? You had a plan that was approved by the voters that was not properly funded. Okay? When this council appointed me and the other members, we knew how much money we had. $5 million. We're trying to work to present a plan that fits the budget. You had a plan that didn't fit the budget. It's that simple, okay? And the superintendent, my understanding, is not going to be in a school building. Okay? So if you want to go with the innuendos and the aspersions and everything, I take umbrage to that because I'm involved with this on a daily basis, Claire. So if you want to take people's innuendos,
It was innuendo.
Listen up, Claire. Can I finish?
Directly.
can I finish now? Okay?
Absolutely.
I watched someone stand right here tonight and say that Peter Banconia was being moved without his knowledge. That's nothing but lies.
No, that's true.
Gary and I met with him. Gary and I met with him.
After the fact.
Gary and I met with him in April. In April, okay? In April. And he suggested he move over to Kendall Dean. You know why? Because his room has no toilets in it. That's simple. Because the plan didn't accommodate it, Claire. Okay? So we did meet with him, and it was his recommendation to move over there. And then we ended up with the thing at the last minute. He had a second thought about it, but he's on board with moving into the basement of that building. Okay?
Then,
Okay?
speaking out of both sides.
Wait a minute.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not saying you.
No,
No, Mr. Branconia, because that's not what we're
Okay.
doing on this side. It is from him.
So if you guys want to let other people come up here and give you third-party information and go ahead with it, here's the plans, you let them run. Or have them come up with a new set of plans. Because I really don't need this, and I know the members of my commission don't
And that's
need
why I'm
this.
trying to put this up the rest right now, because we're hearing it, they come up every week, and they say this, and this, and you're here now, and I just want to.
Okay?
Let's
We heard,
answer-
you heard
let's
tonight,
answer these
Claire,
questions
you
once
heard
and for all.
tonight, Claire, that we weren't replacing the roof on Kendall Dean. Another lie. We are replacing the original roof on Kendall Dean. You know what the alternate is? The flat roof section, because it's only 8 years old, but we said we're gonna put it in as an alternate in case we need to replace it because they're putting rooftop units on there. We are replacing the shingle roof on that building.
I didn't say they weren't. I said they're not replacing a portion of the roof on Kendall Dean. The previous PDC was criticized for the exact same thing.
No, the
Because they
PDIC
put it
wasn't
in as
even
an
replacing the
option.
roof.
They didn't want to replace the roof because it had a useful life left to it, according to the architect. So, you know, one time we do something and it's terrible and those people are all incompetent, the next 6 months later, we're doing the same thing. But I want to know, how come the plan changed? And I don't buy for 1 minute that the budget is restraining anything. You have a square footage building and you're building office space for someone in there. And in January, when you were presented by Mr. Saccoccio, his big presentation, the superintendent's office, the assistant superintendent, and everybody else in the umbrella was in the basement of Kendall Dean. And I said at the time, I don't believe for a minute he's going to end up there. You just filled that in to pacify everybody. And sure enough, tonight he's no longer there. Now, it's EMA is there. And the superintendent and the assistant superintendent are not in the building. And I want to hear from somebody that 5 people from the school department are moving into that Kendall Dean building, because it makes no sense to me that you would have the business manager and the assistant manager remain in another building and then move some staff who do the actual accounting to a second building. And that's what it sounds like is happening here, because, I mean, when the business manager of the school department met with the staff, she had demands that she needed for office space. And I don't see that in here. So, you know, is this adequate? Are you saying, Paul, that this space is adequate for the entire business department to move into?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll be leaving Andrew's school and moving in there. The entire business department with the business manager and the assistant business
manager, the accounts payroll person, and that's why I say I believe it's 5, but I've been going for 8 years. They're moving there.
Okay.
The reason being is the bond question stated consolidation of services, not people, not departments, services. And the only services that we have a chance to consolidate in this town is payroll, accounts payable, in that area. That's why we're putting them on the same floor next to each other for better communication, and that someday maybe through attrition we can get to have one payroll department in this town, one human resource department in this town, one accounts payable department in this town, and save some money.
Absolutely.
That's consolidation of services. Putting people in a building is not consolidation of services.
I agree with you.
That's why certain people aren't going there.
What was the other question you had tonight, Dave?
No, I have a statement to make.
No, never mind the statement. You
The other question was, is there a generator involved in this project in the price? And there is.
No, is there a budget for the generators?
Yes, there is. It's in the budget.
Construction budget, and the antenna.
It is in the budget.
And the
The
antenna.
generator is in the budget. Hopefully we can get Mr. Franconia or somebody to get us a grant, and we can take those monies and offset them to do maybe something else. One of the other alternates, but it's in the base bid.
I'm going to go back to the January meeting where Mr. Saccoccio did his presentation, because I asked him specifically, why is only several people from the school department are in there and not the entire school department? And he said, our direction was to focus just on these individuals. So to me that said, we never tried to get them all in there. And I don't understand, if you're converting space into office space, why is it more expensive that you're making the space for a superintendent versus, you know, the director of the EMA? What is it? It's not taking, that plan that you presented by the PBIC had the square footage. It's not. What's the extra cost that's putting us millions of dollars over now when you're putting the same number of people in?
We're not millions of dollars over. We're right on budget.
No, you're not right. Excuse me. You're not right on budget yet. You don't know what do we have now versus what the original plan called for and was going to be.
We know what the cost of the original plan was. It's over $7 million. We have the bids.
You know, those were add-ons, and he's including the add-on in the overage. I think the bid was actually $1 million over. But that was, and they had a plan to reduce it. But I still don't understand. When I voted for that thing, I voted for that thing understanding everybody from the school department was going to be in there. It makes no sense.
Well,
The superintendent of schools.
You voted for a flawed
No, I didn't vote for a flawed plan.
It was
The
flawed.
superintendent
The
of
bond,
schools.
the whole process was flawed from the beginning.
The superintendent, oh, that's a good song and dance to keep playing, John. The real reason is you don't want office space in the basement of Kendall Dean. People have a mindset that that's not an appropriate space to put offices, and we're not going to do it. So therefore, we had to move people out of the Kendall Dean plan that was developed by 2 other architects who said it was perfectly fine. This is just, it's a joke. This is an absolute joke. That the superintendent, early on, with his first meeting with the MDRTF, look in the minutes of that meeting, I believe it was February, April, or March of the first year which this committee was in place, the superintendent met with them, and he said, we all have to be in one building. My office needs to be close to the finance director, and 3 buildings don't work. And we didn't, that's not achieved here. Is that achieved here? Shouldn't that have been?
That's not the case now. That's not the case right now. That's not the case right now.
Shouldn't that have, no, and he was telling you, but this doesn't work. I need to be in one building with my staff in one location, and my office needs to be close to the finance director. We didn't make an effort to do that, according to Mr. Saccoccio, because if you listen to that January tape, he's going to tell you, we were directed to focus just on these particular personnel. I don't understand who directed him to do that. And you know what? Maybe there wouldn't have been such confusion, Paul, about what your group was doing if once I started going to the meeting, you met in closed session for an hour to an hour and a half every meeting, and basically 2 to 5 minutes in open session. But yet they completed their work miraculously, surprisingly. Behind closed doors all the time. So, you know, let's wonder about why all the time.
All right, listen, Doug, we're not going to make, I was giving you the opportunity to ask your questions, not just bloviate with statement, you know. So, did you ask all your questions that you had today?
Well, he's saying 5 employees from the school department are going to be moving in there.
That's
He
the
said
plan.
different numbers at different times, and he said he had.
We don't have to repeat what he said. He said it.
Yeah, and I don't believe for a minute that the limitation in moving the entire school department in there has anything to do with the cost. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. Yeah, I've been calling this and saying exactly what was going to happen from the get-go.
This is, you're not asking, that's not a question. Did you have a question?
Yeah, why did Peter Branconia tell me?
I can't not speak for Peter Branconia.
Well, I mean, it's really conflicting when somebody tells you that they didn't agree to move to Kendall Dean, and now we're hearing a story that he said he did agree. I mean, I don't know what's going on.
We already
anymore.
settled that tonight. Peter Branconia has to come before the council and let us hear it right from him and not from
And
a
plus,
third
he's
party.
telling me he found out when you invited him to the July 11th meeting that he was moving to Kendall Dean. So now Paul is saying we told him in April. I think what happened in April, they suggested to Peter that he move, but I don't think Peter agreed to move.
Mr. Beer, okay.
I don't
He said-
know why you get so hung up with Peter Branconia.
No, the issue is,
Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Rapko,
yeah,
at a meeting that was requested by the EMA director, Peter Branconia, that was attended by Mr. Zowski and myself, and John Wojcik, and one other member, I'm not sure of his name, but he's the director. He's the assistant director. No, this was back in April. It was a meeting that was requested by the EMA director because he had issues with the existing plan that he didn't have a toilet in his space. And he was looking for somewhere else, okay? So if Peter's telling other stories to other people, then that's an issue that Peter needs to resolve, okay? I know that I had a meeting with Mr. Zowski and 3 members of the EMA back in April for them looking to find other space because what was left at the annex was not suitable for them. And I believe, and I agree with him, it wasn't proper because he got a toilet, okay? Now, through you, Mr. President, Mr. Ratko, you keep on throwing stones toward the task force, oh, we didn't do this and we didn't do that. You were requested to come and meet with us to give us information, am I correct?
that's correct.
Did you?
No, you know why?
Tell me why.
The way you treated us, the way the council treated us, it was like we were embarrassed that we were incompetent people, and we're gonna come along to make you look like the heroes.
How did my committee treat you wrong? We invited you to come and meet with us.
You had a couple people that did agree, and I think the other half disagreed and said, we washed our hands of the situation, we don't wanna hear about it.
And did it have anything to do with you making the statement that you had been removed from that committee?
No. But what upsets me the most is to say that you didn't have enough money to complete this job, that what was in the bond. Because in the second bid that we didn't go out with the PBIC, we brought the bid down to $3.8 million to stay underneath the requirement. And the council said we need to look at another set of eyes. Dan Halloran said we need another set of eyes to look at this because we don't like what's going on. So we said, fine.
Did you
So-
provide that to us?
So I, yeah, so I
No,
disagreed.
you didn't. We've never seen that
We had
plan.
a rebid sheet.
No, we didn't.
Yes, you have
No,
a
we
rebid
didn't. I can
sheet.
tell you right now, Mike, we never did. We never got anything. I have